So if we're going to talk about AI and investing, whether it be like robo investing within a software or bank, or someone's like, you know what, I'm going to ask Chat GPT what to do with my money, this and that. Like, what are your thoughts on bringing AI into this world of managing our own finances, pros, cons? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so first, I will say I don't think AI is going away. I think it's here to stay. It's very entrenched now. It's being used in every facet of our life, whether we realize it or not. And it's getting scary good now in some ways in terms of, I'll call a call center and I'll be talking to an AI agent. I won't even know. It's getting very good. It's dangerous at times too, depending on how it's used. Um, and it can be dangerous when we're using it for advice, right? I know there is a lot of talk um, with different governments about regulating, getting on top of it. I think you know we're a little behind the eight ball there in terms of regulating it. Now we're trying to play catch up. We got to be careful, and clients need to be careful. Advisors need to be careful with using AI. Making our lives a lot more efficient. That's great in terms of, okay, there's AI software for having conversations, and the software picks up our conversations and makes my notes for me. You know, we have that ability. AI can be great for general research, data collection, but you still need to do your own fact checking. You still need to do your due diligence, right? I can go on Chat GPT and I can go say, you know what, pump me out what my tax refund is going to look like. Here's my income, here's my expenses, blah blah blah, and it's going to tell you. But it's providing you a result based on the information you gave it. So there's that term you might have heard, garbage in, garbage out. If you're giving it garbage data, you're not giving it accurate numbers, then it's not going to give you an accurate result, right? And you don't want to base your planning on something that you don't know if is true or not. That could come back to sting you. It's the same with advisors. When advisors are using AI as well, you know, we'll let our companies figure out how AI is going to be implemented into our programs. But when it comes to advice, no, it's the human approach still. Have I used ChatGPT for when I'm working with clients? Yeah, I have used it. I have definitely used it. What I use it for is when I need to do some quick research on something I'm not overly confident on, and I'll be like, ChatGPT, send me some articles, send me some resources, send me some web links, government web links on where I can find information on this. It'll say, okay, go to this link, go to this link. I'll make sure the links are reputable. I'll go to them, then I'll do my research, right? That's how I can use, AI to help me in my practice. I'm not going to go into AI and say, hey, here's my client. First and foremost, that's a major breach in privacy. If you're putting client data into ChatGPT, you never put personal information into there. That stays there and it's used by anybody, right? So you say you don't want to go in there and say, hey, you know what? This is the client's information. Give me some framework of advice for them. No, no, you can't do that. If you have to use ChatGPT, if you use AI, then you shouldn't be in this profession, in my humble opinion, right? You have to know what you're doing, and that's why we spend years training, studying for this industry, and we do continuing education. So we're constantly every year we're doing more and more, which I actually personally, being the nerd I enjoy, going to portfolio management conferences and learning, what's going on, what's trending and whatnot, and then I pass that information on to my clients, right? So AI can be useful, but you got to be very careful. You have to be very, very careful with it, in terms of the quality and the accuracy of the information it's pumping out. Nothing will replace the human touch too. And as scary good as AI is becoming in certain areas, people still want that human connection. When it comes to getting what the type of advice you want, this is where it's become a little bit more muddied. And I say muddied because there's different opinions on this, and there's no there's no right or wrong because it's highly subjective. It depends on the individual, the unique individual, and what kind of advice they want. Robo advising. It's been around a long time now. You see those commercials, right? Quest Trade, for example, you see the commercials. Retire up to 30% wealthier. I think their newest campaign is retire up to 50% wealthier. Low cost, fees. Low cost fee investing and whatnot. But then they have the fine print that shows up on the screen, and it's like it's big, and then disappears. That's commercial. So one day I decided I'm going to go on their website and I'm going to look and see what that fine print actually says. And it says right in there, essentially, paraphrasing, this is all just illustrative. We don't necessarily back what we're advertising, what we're claiming. It's interesting. So again, go and read the fine print yourself. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but read the fine print yourself and you'll be surprised, right? Or you might be surprised. Low cost investing there's a purpose to it. There's a place for it. I'm not saying it's bad. There's a place for it. It all depends on what kind of quality advice you want. For some people, if they have very simple financial needs and they just want, basic investment advice, or they just want to put their money in, set it and forget it, as I call it, type portfolios, they want to pay the least amount of fees, great. Okay, well, there's robo-advising, but you're not going to get more complex advice. You're not going to get, specialized tax saving strategies advice, estate planning advice, retirement planning advice. No, there's calculated, but again, you have to know what you're looking for. You have to be educated. How many people have the time to educate themselves? Some people do, and that's great. More power to you. I'm never going to tell someone who's interested in doing their own stock trading and doing their own planning not to do it. No, if that's what you want to do and that's what you're passionate about, absolutely have at it. For those who want someone with specialized training to come in and be like, here, we're going to figure out your unique situation and we're going to we're going to tailor a specific custom plan for you. That's where we come into play. I've done comparisons. I've done cost comparisons with low fee investing, like ETFs versus, our product shelf. And yes, our fees are going to be a little bit higher. They're going to be a little bit higher. But then I look at the spread, the delta between the rate of return on those low cost portfolios and the rate of return on ours. And I'm comparing apples to apples. I'm opening up the hood. I'm saying, okay, what's in this low cost ETF? What are all its holdings? What are its top 10, top 20 holdings? What is the mix? Okay, we have software where we can do comparisons with what funds do we have that would compare under the hood. Same products, same stocks, same companies. And then I'm like, okay, what was their 1 year, 3 year, 5 year rate of return? What is ours? We look at what's called quartile rankings. How do we compare? What quartile ranking are we compared to our peers? So we're always comparing apples to apples. And yes, I saved 1%, let's say, in savings or in fees. I paid 1% less in fees going low cost, but I also missed out on maybe 5 or 6% rate of return growth. So does that make sense? No, it doesn't make sense, right? Not that always is going to be the case, but in some of the ones I was comparing, I was looking at recently, yes, that's exactly what happened. Was you were saving 1% in fees, but you were missing on 6% growth. By not going with this other portfolio, that you could have had with me. So again, cheaper isn't always better. Robo-advising, it has its place for those who have very basic needs, but when you want to get into complex planning and you want to get into more portfolio optimization, there is something to be said about working with an actual advisor.
Yeah. I think it's the nuances, right? Because like you said, certain data in, certain data out. And so sometimes with that, like the best AI can't extrapolate your situation from a 2 sentence prompt.
Yeah.
Right. So that's part of it. There's one thing, I don't know if you heard this, it was interesting. It's like something about AI in general or chat wanting to be a yes man. So a lot of times it doesn't really say your ideas are bad.
Right.
But it'll find ways to hype you up and go with your flow, like seeing your intention and being like, here's how we can make that happen, versus saying, no, you shouldn't do that. So whether that's true or not true, I still believe in what you're saying. I like the idea of chat being, or AI being a really great assistant and pulling up, aggregating things, and then you have to then use your own brain to go, what's reality? Just like news, like news, right? Like fake news and all this AI slop and everything. You gotta go, what's real, what's not real.
Yeah, it's getting harder. It's getting harder to
crazy and deep fakes and this and that.
It is.
So it's still up to us to still use our brain to be like, what do we believe?
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a good point about AI, and I won't name specific AI, software, but it can be an echo chamber, and it can be a yes man, like you said, right? And I think about all the times I've put in prompts and the responses I got. There were only one time, and I was really pushing the envelope to see what response I got. There was only one time where it said, "This is not a good idea,"
Okay. Yeah.
right? And so it did happen. I know it happens,
Okay.
but it's like this is not advisable, right? And it was nothing criminal, nothing illegal, nothing like that. But it was just I just think about that. It makes me laugh because more often than not, you put in a prompt, it's like this is a great idea. You're on the right track. I like where your thinking's at.
Yeah.
You know, you're on the right track. Yes, your line of thinking is great here. It'll always compliment you and say you're on the right track, whether you are or not. You know,
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm not going to have my traditional eggs and avocado for breakfast today. I think I'm going to have a Krispy Kreme donut or a couple Cinnabons. What do you think about that? That's a great idea, Colin. I think your mental health is very important. And you know what? What's a couple Cinnabons? You're on the right track, right? Yeah,
Right.
it's going to tell me that.
Yeah.
It probably will, right? It's learning. It's a learning machine. It's going to learn your language, learn your thought processes, and it's going to cater to what you want to hear.